Charles Burt is the Managing Director of the Olive Consultancy. Charles, what's the topic of your presentation to the Future Solent conference?
My purpose of addressing everybody today has been to try and put some meat on the sort of risks and opportunities questions that people are forever asking me about. And I think the important thing here is to focus on the opportunities, because everybody at the moment talks about risk, and actually the biggest risk is doing nothing. We need to get on.
So how should businesses be thinking about heading into the future?
I think they should look back a bit. I mean, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but if you think of the invention of the motor car, the wonderful thing that it is, now totally central to our way of life, is that people, when the motor car was first on the road, had to walk in front of it with a red flag, and everybody else was terrified and saying they were perfectly happy with a horse, thank you. We are actually at that sort of a turning point where we have generated the most phenomenal wealth and well-being as a result of fossil fuel, which the biologists would call our limiting nutrient. And fossil fuel is now becoming increasingly expensive. The demand for it is rising with population. It's absolutely crucial to the production of food, but there's a limited amount of it, and therefore market forces will drive up that cost and will also increase the risks of getting at it. And the important thing, therefore, is to find ways of maintaining our way of life and move on. The opportunities, of course, are finding the answers to that. And really what I focus on and what we as a business focus on is helping anybody, private, public sector, third sector, to actually understand what that means for them. And that's what I'm going to try and do today.
And what steps should businesses be actually taking?
Well, the most important thing, I think, is to understand the carbon sensitivity of the marketplace they're in. If they're high energy consumers and they go on with business as usual, they're just locking into higher prices, they're locking into resource shortages, they're also locking into perhaps a supply chain in which the prices will change fairly dramatically, and they will be dependent on a increasingly volatile resource, so very difficult to forecast ahead, other than the fact that it's all going to get more expensive. If they get out of that and they learn how to identify the carbon in what they do and the life cycle of their products or services, then they can begin to address that and find alternatives. It doesn't mean we stop doing things, it just means that we do things differently. And therefore that presents opportunities for innovation, it presents opportunities to set your business apart for competitive advantage, and also for long-term investment, which locks in the price of energy if you can get away from the fossil dependency.
So if they take this approach, what can they expect in the way of benefits from adopting it?
Well, if we look at it from a regional point of view, because everybody has a different part to play, and businesses and local authorities and regional authorities all have different roles. But if you put it in its totality, we're going to create new skills. Engineering skills, installation skills, maintenance skills. Quite a lot of those skills will actually go to the less well qualified. So those who are currently finding it difficult to find employment will actually find that there are fairly simple jobs out there, because we're going to need manpower and they're fairly easily trained. So there's a bottom-up approach which is really valuable. I think also if you generate those skills and you generate the jobs and you generate the knowledge and the confidence, you get growth in the economy, because here is something that is new that people can do they couldn't do before. So it lifts them. As a result of that, you end up generating local economic growth. You inevitably decouple from fossil fuel price rises, and you create local economic advantage with the social good that you also lift people out of fuel poverty.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.